Hi guys, it's Isis Fernandez here. Today we're going to talk about how to create a weighted gradebook for your D2L course. And I like to start off by saying how I usually say in videos dealing with anything dealing with design of a course, there's more than one way to skin a cat. This is just how I skin a cat. And so I'll show you a little bit about how I put the weighted gradebook together for my classes. Of course, I teach English, so some of this is super easy for English. Of course, for some of you guys, it may not be quite as easy, but it is here and we are going to make do with what we got. Okay, so how I always like to start is I always like to start with the big categories. So for me, I have to go back to my syllabus. And so we really want to adhere and make sure that your class is adhering to what you have guaranteed your students, how their grades are going to be calculated. And so how I like to kind of discuss or explain a weighted grade or a weighted grade book is that you actually have buckets. Here I have 4 buckets, and all those buckets actually come up to 100, right? You add them all up and they are, they total to 100. So in these 4 buckets, I'm going to put all of the assignments, and each bucket has a different category. For me, it's quizzes, discussions, essays, and then the final. And this is what my online 1301 class looks like. So this is how it kind of breaks down. So when I'm going to go do my grade book, these are the big categories I'm going to put in the grade book. Now I haven't even discussed assignments yet, because the assignments aren't quite in here. Every assignment has a category, and those categories either fall in quizzes, discussions, essays, or final. So I want to make sure I get the big stuff first and get it in, and then attach all the assignments that go into the specific bucket to go to the specific bucket. Now let me show you what I mean. Here, of course, is this wonderful part of my syllabus that says, hey guys, this is how I'm going to grade you. This is how we're going to determine how you pass this wonderful English 1301 online class. And so I take this and I go into my class. Now I've opened a sandbox here, and I definitely recommend opening a sandbox, even if it's just for the last 5 or 6 weeks of your class, because students are already looking on their D2L courses and they are very much watching what you're doing. And so you want to be able to play with things and how things are going to look like, how things are going to flow without the prying eyes of students, because you will get many emails about, I don't understand, what is this assignment that is due? And you're not even prepared to talk about the assignment. So definitely play in the sandbox. And that's why it's called a sandbox, because you get to play. How I like to do it is that I like to go to grades. And once you hit grades, you are automatically put into the setup wizard. And before we start working and playing in the setup wizard, I want you to see all these wonderful words and all these wonderful things here. D2L will tell you exactly how your grades will be set up before you even hit OK. So right here, the default is it's going to do a points grading system. I don't want that. I want a weighted system. Right here, the default is to release the calculated final grade and do not automatically release the final grade. That's kind of almost counterintuitive. It's one means one part of the grade in the grade book and the other means something completely different, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's the dropped ungraded items and the automatically keep final grades updated calculations. And both of these are actually really good. And I'll get to what it means to drop ungraded items, because the verbiage is a little misleading. But you definitely want to be able to drop ungraded items. And I'll tell you the effect of what happens when you don't. And of course, all these wonderful things to show you about the display, how this is going to be displayed not only in your gradebook, but how it will be displayed to your students. So I'm going to hit this blue button here. I don't know if you can see it. At the bottom of my screen, it's a blue button that says Start in white letters. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it takes you 7 steps to put your beautiful gradebook, well, at least to start it. So I'm going to hit Weighted. And the reason why I'm hitting Weighted, because it looks very similar to what I showed you that how my grades are going to be calculated. In fact, let's bring that back here. See how it's all, doesn't say percent, but these are all percentages. These are my 4 buckets. Remember I said that? So that's what I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose the weighted. I'm not going to choose points, and I'm not going to choose formula. We're going to do a points video. And so if you are wanting to understand the difference between a weighted grade and a point system grade, and don't quite get it from these examples, definitely check out the points video and see how you want to set up, or how you need to set up your grading system. I'm going to hit the blue button, continue. And I'm on step 2, final grades release. So here is where it gets a little tricky. There is the calculated grade, which is the grade that is calculated based on the formula that you set up, versus the adjusted final grade, which is what you use to adjust a grade when you don't want to tinker with anything in the formula of your grading. I have never used this, so I personally wouldn't suggest it. But if you're one who says, I'm gonna tinker with it, I think this student needs a little bit more points, or I'm gonna round up some grades, this is probably what you want to do. And then of course they automatically release final grade, and this is essentially at the end of the semester, the students get to see what their grades are. There is a way for the students to know what their grades are as they're progressing in your course. It's not this step, but it is coming up. So I hit continue and I go to the 3rd. And I went ahead and, let me go back and explain. I went ahead and hit calculated final grade, because that's the grade that I want to be calculated based on my grade book. Again, I have 4 buckets, and all those buckets together equals 100%. So there is a formula there. As an English teacher, I'm very happy I don't get to calculate this formula, and that D2L does it for me. So D2L actually will calculate the grade for you. So let me hit the continue button here, and we're in step 3. Do you want to drop ungraded, or do you want to treat ungraded items as 0? Now, you're probably thinking, well, if they haven't done the assignment, obviously it's 0. Yes, but you are posting all of your assignments on your gradebook. So that means assignments that they don't have access to, assignments that they haven't completed yet because you haven't taught the lesson, will be treated as 0 if you click this. If you drop the ungraded items, that means items that have not been graded at all, that will not be part of their calculations. For example, if you are in week 10 and you click treat ungraded items as 0, that means items from week 11, week 12, 13, 14, and 15 that haven't been graded will become 0s, which means that the grade that the student sees on their side, on their gradebook, isn't accurate. They think they're actually failing the course, when indeed they may be passing the course. So what you want to do is hit drop ungraded items, and that will actually not calculate any items that have not been graded and haven't come up yet. And so that gives the student a more accurate, an accurate measure of how they're doing in the class. It gives you a more accurate measure of how they're doing in the class, and everybody is relatively happy. I like to do the auto update of automatically keep final grades updated. as soon as I've graded something, and as soon as I hit submit or I hit refresh, they know what the grade is. If I need to retract a grade later, say if I'm in Turnitin and I want to retract a grade because they maybe submitted an updated version of their essay, I can do that, and it automatically keeps the grade updated as I'm grading, so I don't have to think about it. Hitting continue, I'm in wonderful step 4, and then we're looking at the organization schemes here. The default is percentage. There is no other default, so one less thing you have to worry about. So I'm going to hit continue and keep going. I think for the point system is a little bit different here on this step. And step 5, how many decimal places do you want to display after the decimal? I usually go with 2, which is the default. Some professors do 0. That just helps the student understand, in my experience, help the student understand kind of where they are in the scheme of 0 to 10. If they have a 79.4 and they've got a couple of assignments left, they know they've got to work a little bit harder to bring that up to an 80. So I usually leave it at 2, but you can definitely display it to 6 if you'd like. I like 2, keeps it pretty simple, very, very basic. Step 6, which is fantastic here, has a lot of stuff. So a couple of things here that you will see that will be seen on the student side. There will be a points grade, meaning the grade that's awarded to the assignment, the weighted grade, which is what grade they have now, and the grade scheme symbol, which here I went ahead and clicked on it because the wording here is kind of iffy here, so I want to make sure I explain it correctly. It determines whether or not the grade scheming symbol associated with a grade is displayed in the student's view of grades. So a symbol could be, if you're wanting to do just A, B, C, or D, want to give them a letter grade versus a number grade. And that's completely doable here. And of course you have the scheme color if you want to assign specific colors to specific grades. So if you want to color code your wonderful gradebook, that is completely up to you. They already come kind of color coded. I know that blue means okay, yellow means middle of the road. If it's in a pink or dark pink, the student isn't doing quite well. So if it's something that you think could be useful to you, or if you want to change the color, that's where you can click that. I tend to leave it alone because there's already a default there. Here is again where it's going to ask you how many decimal places or how many decimal places after the decimal you want the grade to display. I stayed with 2. And of course the text items, and this text items is how much space you want to label your grade items. I usually go with the default of 50. That's usually more than enough. You can make this a little bit bigger if you want, but 50 tends to be pretty okay. Then the final grade calculations. Do you want them to display the final grade calculation to your users? I usually say yes, because the grades belong to the students and I want them to always know where they are in the course and like how things are being calculated. And so they're able to see how their grades are actually put together. And so they understand that maybe in the 4 buckets, you did great in buckets 2 through 4, but bucket 1 wasn't that great. And so that's what made your grade drop. So I want them to have as much knowledge as possible so they understand how their grades are calculated and how to do their work well. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And here we are. This should be very, very familiar. And this is essentially all the decisions we have made from steps 1 through 6 on how we are setting up this grade book. We know that it is a weighted grade book. We know the difference between the release calculated final grade and do not automatically release final grade. We're dropping the ungraded items and we're having D2L automatically keep the final grades updated. So if we are changing anything or if we're adding maybe extra credit, it will automatically do that for us. We understand that we're going to use percentages. So the numbers that they see, by they I mean students see on their side of the gradebook, is based on a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to whatever. And they understand that if it's an 80, it's a B. Or if it's a 75, it's a C. So they understand that. And of course, that is what's in our syllabus on the English department side. And so we have those grading rubrics there for them. And so we know that it's going to display 2 decimal places after the decimal spot. 2 is fine, so it'll be 79.45 or 78.64. If you want to limit that, make it smaller, make it bigger, it's up to you. And these are the other decisions that we've made. We're going to hit finish, and we are ready to set up wonderful things in our fantastic new grade book. So for the next video, I'm going to show you how to put together categories and grade items. If you want to import grades, we'll go through that as well. Thanks.